Good evening, bonsoir. Bienvenue à la séance ordinaire publique du 25 novembre. Welcome to the special public meeting on November 25th. On va aller à l'approbation de l'ordre du jour. Madame Parker.
That the agenda be approved as presented.
All right, I'll need someone to move. Councillor Burnett, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. Ready for the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Madame Parker, est-ce qu'on a des déclarations de conflit d'intérêt?
There were no conflicts of interest declared.
Parfait. On tombe sur finance, révision du budget pour 2025. So 2025 budget review. Madame Gauvin, I'll give you the mic. Et nous voilà.
Merci.
Take 4.
Part four. So tonight, we are ready to show 4 balanced budgets. Ce soir, on est prêt à présenter 4 budgets balancés pour voir si on est prêt pour apporter en résolution la semaine prochaine. So we will start tonight by the general operating fund. So we'll start with where we left off when we were at a deficit of 270. Talk about the directions from council and the changes that were made emanating from those discussions, then the tax rate. And then for all 3 budgets, we will present the balanced budget with the comments that we received from council. So for the utility, we will show with the revenues that were adjusted consequently, and then the capital funds, both budgets are now with the 5-year capital, everything budget balances also. So the biggest one is the general operating fund. So starting with where we left off on November 12th. When we left, we had a deficit of 270,000, so spread throughout, and obviously that was with the same tax rate as 2024 for all 3 subunits, and we still had to include the transition period in that and a few decisions. But that is where we left off on the 12th. So when we did meet last week, we had discussed the council salaries, so no changes made but committee put in place. Council travel, we were directed to compare 2025 budget to actual 2024 for potential decrease. The tourism, we were directed to borrow for capital tourism project and reallocate to discretionary tourism initiatives for 140. The grants, no change in the total, so 165 total, but 72,600 is what is left to send to the grants committee as the discretionary amount. The library, no changes were made to what was in as it was approved for what they had requested, and we had received the request from council to decrease the tax rate for Ward 1 by 2 cents. So this is what we worked on top of balancing the budget to make everything work. So if we look at what we did to get to a balanced budget. So the first section is revenues, because obviously if we can increase revenues in a logical way without having to decrease, that's always the first thing that we start. So the first thing that we did was look at building permits. We know that we have the Housing Accelerator Fund that will generate, by default we have to increase units, so there will be more building permits. And we have a few files that we are very confident that would generate more building permits, so we were able to comfortably increase it by 200,000 instead of the initial amount of 100. So the total building permits that's projected for 2025 would be at 300,000. Then, in the last week, we received the last Regional Service Commission invoice for 2024. They reimbursed us for the portion of the transportation for the bus services that we had paid in 2024. We shouldn't have been charged. So they reimbursed us for that amount. The amount total is about 38 something. So if we round it to 40,000, we could take that money in 2024, put into the reserve, and in 2025 we take it out to pay for the transportation service if it goes forward, because we already have paid a portion of it. So we'll have a leg up. Then this is just the adjustment because we decreased, we made adjustments to the admin charges that we charge to the utility fund, so this is just an adjustment. So total revenues of 234, because the 5,000 is supposed to be in a minus, but that's 234,776 in added revenues. Then on the expense side, we took away the capital paid cash for tourism, so that's a decrease in expense of 140. But we increased the tourism incentives by 140. Then with new information from our service provider for translation, we decreased the translation by 20,000. The salt budget, we decreased it by 51,000 because with the past few years, we've always been budgeting for a really, really bad winter. But we don't get them. If we really, really get a bad winter, it's like a really bad event that would happen in the city of Bathurst. Obviously, we would take the money at the reserve if there was really, really a big bad winter. But we don't necessarily have to budget for it. So we decreased it by 51,000. Electricity, we had budgeted for many of the GLs 11.5% increase, but with new information coming in and what other municipalities are going, we put it at 9.5. That decreased by 40,000. We looked at council's budget. It looked like it could be decreased by 10,000 when we compare 2024 to 2025 budgeted for their travel. Then we have fire administration where we have savings of 48,440. And then the Shala Regional Service Commission, we have savings by 79,752 because we have received the second version of the budget. But we will come back to this the next slide. So remember this line, and then I'll ask you to remember the second line as well, because we increased the manager's budget for continuous improvement by 32,000. But remember those two lines. They'll come back on the next slide. So we have a total savings of 206,616 for a net impact on the budget of 441,392. On the bottom, we didn't include it on the first draft, but we also added in revenues and the same amount in expenses for the Housing Accelerator Fund for 780,000. So although they net each other, it's still a closer look at what we have on the go for the year 2025 as ongoing projects and as a strategy as a city to use those funds. So, Regional Service Commission, we received a version of the budget this morning at 11 a.m. following the discussions that happened at Regional Service Commission last week. That being said, the first line that changes, second one from the bottom, would be public safety. Because of the safety coordinator that's not going forward, they decreased the budget, creating savings of 27,662. If we look at the transportation, and this is, I'm going to jump transportation for now because it'll be a little bit more complicated for that one. But all the other amounts that change in the budget is because by changing the public safety and a few ones, it changes the distribution of allocated corporate fees on how they spread it throughout. So that's the only reason for the other numbers to change. So regional transportation, the version that I received this morning was for a 12-hour bus service instead of a 7-hour bus service for 6 months. When we looked at the number, it gave 38,000. But it didn't really make sense because the full amount for the 12 hours was 135. By default, half would have been 67.5-ish. So I sent it back and they looked at it again. In the meantime, I finished my document. I sent it to council. So this is the number that you have in your papers now. But at 4 o'clock today, I received clarification that there was a mistake in the document that we received this morning. When they did the budget for transportation, there's a grant for RDC for 40%. Instead of putting the 40% grant on just the bus services, they put it for the full transportation services, including all the dial-a-rides and all of that. So that decreased the revenues. So the new budget amount that I received at the end of the day was 82,373 for 6 months of 12-hour bus services shared between Bathurst and Belle Bay. So obviously that increases, or it decreases my savings quite a bit. But remember my line with, I said to remember for manager for 32,000. That line, we know that the Regional Service Commission is still up for adoption. That's a plug. That is really because we need to put an amount in the same column for shared services. That's where the RSC is. And so by putting it in continuous improvement through the managers, that budget can be allocated depending on the needs if there's something new, but it's an easy, quick fix that we can put there. However, now that my budget is going to be 82,000 instead of the 38, instead of increasing it by 32, I'm going to be decreasing that same spot by the amount. And by the time we do the resolution, depending on what goes on in the budget approvals for RSC, that amount might change. But that's the only line where I can play with to kind of balance, because the deadline is November 29th. We're hoping to finish on December 2nd to be as close as the date as possible. So that's the only place where we can quickly fix it. Good?
We have a question. Councillor Leblanc.
Merci, Madame la mairesse, Madame Gauvin. Le 32 000 que tu disais tantôt, là, que tu pouvais ramener là, si j'ai bien calculé vite fait la différence, on parle d'environ 45 000 de différence. Et puis là, avec le 32 000, ça nous laisserait toujours un 13 000 de négatif. Vous pensez pouvoir le récupérer ailleurs? C'est ça que vous dites?
On va réduire le budget d'éducation, de continuous improvement du montant de 13 000. Parce qu'il y a toujours un montant de continuous improvement pour les études, des stratégies, des choses. Donc, on va le réduire de ce montant-là. C'est pour ça que c'est la meilleure place à jouer, parce que...
Oui.
Jouer, façon de parler, là.
Je comprends à 100%.
Ouais.
Merci.
Councillor Burnett.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Thank you. If we accept this budget and the regional service with the regional transportation monies there, does that mean we're accepting regional transportation? Or do we have to bring that back to a vote of council that we are going to go with regional transportation?
That one, I do not know the mechanics of where the approval works. If the transportation has to be approved first and then the budget, I'm not sure the order of things. But it doesn't mean that because the budget is approved that the bus services is approved, from my understanding. We would only be invoiced the actual cost if and when it starts to be in motion.
So if we vote against it to start with, then we could reduce the budget that much more right away?
Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just out of curiosity, when you received the numbers from the Regional Service Commission, did they let you know what Bell Bay's portion was for the transportation?
Yes. I think I'm the only one who has this right now, so I'm
all
like
going to have it now.
putting out of the bag there. Just saying. So Bell Bay, their contribution would be $64,947. The total 2025 budget for transportation would be $147,320.
So 82,000 for Bathurst and 64 for Bell Bay.
Yes.
All right. Councillor Knowles.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to understand why it's only budgeted for regional transportation for a half year, the initial.
Because by the time they receive the bus, even 6 months is quite aggressive. They don't think they could actually be in service until September, because just ordering the bus, receiving the bus, and going to actual service delivery, that's what causes the delay.
Okay, got it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Branch.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just kind of curious, like every time this topic comes up, I always say the same thing, like I think that we should explore other options before we go down the road of saying that we should have the Service Commission operate the bus service, right? Like I feel that if we need a bus service, there should be a study done for Bathurst, there should be a presentation done to council, and we should explore all the available options. Like I'm just curious, like why is the Regional Service Commission uniquely qualified to operate a bus system? Like why are they more qualified than the city would be to operate their own bus system? Or why are they more qualified than a not-for-profit or private company?
So for this is we want to approve the budget to move forward, and then the funds will be there. Then we'll have a meeting to actually discuss public transportation. What I can tell you is right now, because of the reform in the province of New Brunswick and all the funding programs through the Regional Service Commission, they qualified for all these rebates and all this funding that we would not qualify. And if you look at the 3-year pilot program, and it would be a 3-year pilot program before we commit, there's no way we would be able to, and I mean, you can talk to Deputy Mayor Willett because he was at the meeting as well. There is no way that we can offer public transportation to our people for that price.
I would say by looking at the numbers that I seen, the administrative costs that are being levied come close to offsetting any of the rebates we get, and those incentives we're getting from the province disappear after 3 years.
And again, this would be a 3-year pilot program, but for this evening, because we need to move forward and approve a budget for next Monday, that's the number that's put there. But if we don't move forward with it, we don't move forward with it. We still have an opportunity to bring it back at a different meeting. We will discuss it, we will hash it, and if we vote no, we vote no.
Yeah, just full disclosure, I guess I'll have to think about it, because
Yes.
I'm not sure if I'll even feel comfortable voting in support of a budget that includes that on there. And I understand what you're saying, but
Yep.
I'm not sure how I'll vote on the budget if that's left in there.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Okay. Right.
Okay. Next section, tax rates. This is what a lot of people are looking for. So just as a reminder, we have 3 sub-units. We have North Tetegush, and we have the one that we have Big River, Santa Ana, all of those other rural districts that used to be managed by the province. And then we have, those are Ward 2, and then we have Ward 1, which is the old city of Bathurst limits. Altogether, they make the full warrant for the years. So we have 3 different tax rates, 3 different property assessment value, and the transition period was 6 years, so 2023 being year 1. 2025, we have 4 years left in the transition. So without the transition, because to get to a number with the transition of a proposed tax rate, we have to start without the transition. So when we look at the total budget, we have non-tax revenue total of $7.3 million, with expenses of $38.7 million, with the unconditional grant, which is a revenue of $3.2 million. So what's left with the required warrant as a whole is $28,119,119. That is spread through all 3 subunits, but then there's also the shared services, which everybody is responsible to pay for their share of it. So if we take the shared services now and we pull them inside every subunit, and so it changes the distribution, you can see that without a transition period, the required warrant for North Tetegush would be $895,000. For Bathurst Big River, 1.5, and Old Bathurst, it would be $25.7 million for the total $28 million. That would bring a tax rate of, if you look at North Tetegush, they currently have 86.52 cents. They would need to increase by 16.48 cents for a new tax rate of $1.03. For Bathurst Big River, they are now at 84.20 cents. They would need to increase by 15.19 for the total of 99.39 cents. And then Old Bathurst, we currently are at 1.7750. We could decrease by 3.89 cents for 1.73 cents. But they're asking the Ward 2 to increase by that much is obviously unreasonable, and that's why the province put a transition period. So remember I said that we had 4 years left. So that number, if you took the column, the row of required tax rate to cover shared services, that number has to be divided by 4 for the 4 years left. Last year we divided it by 5. This year we're dividing it by 4. That changes the increase to 4.12 cents for North Tetegush for a total of 90 cents, 0.64. Bathurst Big River increase of 3.80 cents for an increase for a total of 0.88. Then Bathurst, as mandated by council, decrease of 2 cents for the new tax rate of 1.755. Mind you, Ward 2 also has that 41 cents for transportation. So those numbers are there for what we receive, but on top of that, they receive something else. If we do that, The total increase for Ward 2, altogether they meet for 93,000. Bathurst, Old City Bathurst limit, decrease of 296, for a total decrease in warrant of 202,000. And these would be the new tax rate. So right now it's to council to confirm if they want to go ahead with these tax rate, and we will integrate them in resolutions next week.
All right. Any objections? Councillor Branch?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess I just have a question, getting back to kind of what we discussed a while ago. Like Ward 2, it was said that Ward 2 would only pay for the services that they received. So if the city were to go ahead with the transit system, and that's being funded through the operational budget, but it's not servicing Ward 2, then would Ward 2 have to pay a portion of that, or would that all be from Ward 1?
Right now it is fully marked as a shared services because it considers, when the RSC charges us, they consider the full tax assessment of the full New Bathurst, not just Ward 1.
So Ward 2 will essentially be paying for a service that they're not scheduled to receive. Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Burnett?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I wasn't at the last meeting because of a medical appointment out of town. And did you guys discuss the bus situation in detail? How many employees, where the stops are, how many buses, how much is the cost of the overhead infrastructure, and the benefits for the drivers, repairs, mechanics, all that stuff? Has that all been discussed by council as to what the true costs are for the bus system? I don't remember having any of that.
No.
That discussion is with the Regional Service Commission, so they would be the one to present that detailed budget, because we still don't have a new detailed version on our end for 6 months what it means. So I think that there's continuing presentations with the Regional Service Commission on that subject.
Okay, without that information, I'm not prepared to vote for it. Cool.
All right. We had our meeting last week, and we were supposed to vote, and we ended up not voting, and we have to have another meeting on December 5th because of some additional changes that came into play the night of the vote. So we decided that we were not voting on the actual budget. For us, like I mentioned, because we're trying to balance a budget, it's like last year, we put money in the funds. If we don't use it, we get reimbursed. So we will not move forward with public transportation until council gets the whole information. If you want to put it in the budget there, and then if we don't use it, then we don't pay it, and then it's the money. What's important, I think, is for next Monday is we need to send a balanced budget. We need to move forward with a balanced budget so Ms. Gauvin and everybody else can pass it in on time because it's November 29th. But transportation, we'll get them to come and do a presentation. None of that will move forward just because we're approving a budget. And I mean, we're saying it during a public meeting. Just to reassure you. You're welcome. Okay.
So am I?
Continue. So for the tax rate, everybody's okay with this? Okay.
All right. Then that would complete the general operating fund. The utility fund. So this really is just to show that we had 8.1 million in expense in utility. We had said that with the current rate, we'd had 7.2 million in revenues, which would create a deficit of 81,000. So council had given the direction of increasing all revenues throughout by 2%, covering the gap, balancing the budget. So in your packages, same thing as a general fund, you have one page that lists all the sections of the budget. Same in the utility, you have a new one that shows all the sections of that budget, but it now shows a balanced budget. I had that in case you want to look at it again, but if you look at your package, it is now balanced. So unless I have other indication, that's the resolutions that will be brought next week.
No questions.
Okay.
Oh, spoke too quickly. Councillor Legacy.
I just want to know, about our flushing operations. If we could get a little bit more detail on that. Because I know originally we said we were supposed to do all of Bathurst once every 3 years on a rotation. Is that still being met?
Mr. Abernathy?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Excuse me. So when we first began our flushing program 2 years ago, we did complete Parkwood Heights during a period where we had not had the St. Anne booster in place. So in my, I guess, in my eyes, after seeing the results of that, I'm basically, I'd have to say that year was almost wasted in our UDF because we didn't have the available flushing, the available pressures in that area to do the flushing. So that will have to be redone. I would say at the rate that we did this summer we completed most of South Bathurst and downtown area. We had very good progress this year, and it's only getting better every year. Seeing as in this is the first time this group of employees is doing it, the last time it was done was 2007. There's very few employees that are still there from then. I think the progress they're making is very encouraging. I think by the time we get this first run of the city done, and the first run is always the longest because it takes the longest to clean the pipes out. Once it gets done through once, I believe that our employees will be able to do it once every 3 years, no issue. It's getting this initial run done that's being the challenge right now. This summer we did have a bit of a difficult summer with the implementation of the flat rate. Obviously increased demands a little bit. We had a very dry summer. We had the new implementation of the St. Anne booster. So we had a lot going on the utility side, pretty much a worst case scenario with the dry summer that we had. And obviously the water quality reflected that. We didn't have a very good summer for water quality. We're hoping for better next year. So this year we had to haul a lot of employees away, and we still were able to get a lot of that UDF done. However, we're suffering right now with not being able to complete our manhole repairs and our hydrant flushing and our hydrant repairs. We have over 50 hydrants in the system right now that need to be repaired, so we're behind on that. We certainly could use more resources on the utility side. I appreciate the 2% increase. However, with increase in pricing, and we're not going to see a whole lot of change in our ability to complete our work next year. We're probably going to struggle again next year. So that's where we are now. I am confident, however, that the UDF program is getting better every year. Our employees are getting more used to the books and to the process. So I see that going well. Not having to pull them away from that certainly would be a benefit to us in the future if we did have an extra employee or two in that area.
And what would that look like? Like what are you missing, especially to complete this initial full UDF for the entire city? What kind of resources would you need to get that past the hump so people can see improved results on that?
I would think at minimum 1 or 2 extra employees on the utility side for the summer certainly would be useful. So that would mean 2 seasonal employees. Approximate cost for those is about $30,000 a piece when you include a vehicle and training and everything else for extra employees. So about $60,000 extra on the utility side certainly could be useful.
That would be on the utility sides, which we don't have the money, because but even with the 2 cents, we're just barely covering.
Well, no, this is the 2% we're talking about.
2%, yeah.
But originally, when we brought this up, we had talked about CPI, which is more than 2%, so we're not even keeping up with the cost of inflation. So
the reason why we had proposed 2.5 initially is because we had lower trend from where we are 2024. So by increasing those projections, when we increased them for 2025, it lowered the gap that was left. So that's why it was brought to 2%. But you're right, the first discussion that we proposed was 2.5.
Because I'm also a little bit concerned that we did absolutely zero marketing advertising about that discount of 5% if people pay early, and I feel like more people are going to hop on that. So I feel like we're still pulling it too tight, too close to the line, and I'd really like to bring up the discussion tonight for council if we can bring it up to at least 3%, give some wiggle room to show some improvement in our water quality. It would be an extra $8 for a year per bill compared to what's proposed here. And I think it's worth it so we can actually see some improvement to the water quality and give us a little bit of a buffer, because it's just going to keep getting worse. And until we can get over that hump, it's not on the right trend.
I completely agree, Councillor Legacy. Mr. Abernathy, back at you. Would 3 cents make a difference? Would that make the difference to be able to?
I believe for every 0.5%, we're looking at about $46,000.
Well, two.
So that would cover your 2
2%,
employees that
we
you're
were at
looking for?
81.
At 2%, we were at 81, so
40 and a half.
So we'd be looking at another 40,000. Yeah. So certainly it would get us one more employee, and then we would be able to allocate current employees a little bit more to the utility side, which would be good. It wouldn't get us the full 2, but 1 would certainly be appreciated for sure.
All right. So Councillor Legacy has put something on the table where, just out of curiosity, Councillor Burnett has a question, and then if we want to bring that discussion, Councillor Burnett?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. On that topic, I don't agree at all. I think it went up too much last year, and I don't agree with putting even the 2% bugged me. And recently, I was out working a campaign for a group, and the people are still so upset about the cost of water. Seniors and people that hardly are home, and people that travel or work away, and just so many negatives. And then this summer we had brown water in a lot of parts of the city, but I must commend Mr. Abernathy. My area was one of them, but now lately it's cleared up a lot. I've been, of course, keeping an eye on that. So whatever you've done in our area, I hope we can spread that to the rest of the city and clear up Parkwood Heights. I've been receiving calls from there, but down and coming, it seems to be getting so much better. So thank you for that. And hopefully you can pass that on. But the price, no way.
But as Mr. Abernathy is saying, in order to be able to continue doing the work that they're doing, there's shortage in manpower. So without the manpower, guaranteed more brown water next summer, from what I'm understanding, because there's not enough employees to get the true work that needs to be done under utilities. And this is where the discussion is at this time. And I respect what you're saying, Councillor Burnett, by all means. I'm just putting the information out there. This belongs to council to decide.
A couple of apartment owners too were saying, you know, they could expect last year to go up 25-30%, but some went up 180%. And they said, how do they get that 180% when some of their apartments are low income? They're serving the needs of some special people, and 180% passed on to the apartment owners was very, very tough.
So, Madame Gauvin, this idea of 3%, you would have to need to know that ASAP if we were to put that to balance the budget, right?
If we want to bring a balanced budget for resolution next week, yes.
Okay. So feedback from council, I'll go individually, stay with the 2% as is, or are you interested in wanting to consider? Councillor Legacy, I've got your feedback there. I'll go to Councillor Knowles.
I would stay at 2% for this year.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Willett?
I would stay at 2%, but definitely if we can get the fiscal reform straightened out during these winter months, then any of that money should be allocated to public works, to the utility side, so that we can do the job.
That's a good point. Councillor Branch?
2%.
Okay. Councillor Anderson?
I'm even having a hard time with the 2%, so...
Okay.
And I appreciate, and I understand it's kind of like a double-edged sword.
Yep.
But I agree with Councillor Willett that if there's other monies that fall from the sky, it should be allocated to that fund to help out the utility. But for me, like I said, I'm having a hard time swallowing the 2%.
All right. Councillor Burnett, I already know your feed. Yep. All right. Councillor LeBlanc?
2% for now. The same thing as Councillor Willett. And to support, in support of what Councillor Legacy said, we had mentioned this last year and we did this. And I think either we do it or we haven't fixed anything. Is next year start looking at CPI and find monies somewhere to help Matt, or else this is completely futile what we've done.
Yep. Councillor Scary?
I agree with the 2%, and again, if there's any money whatsoever that can be found somewhere else, or again falls from the sky kind of thing, that is our top priority, to put that into working in the water situation. And we thank the workers that are doing such a fine job, and it is hard when you read a lot of stuff on aging infrastructure in a lot of other communities. It's not just Bathurst; it's having problems with water. You take places like Toronto and big cities, and they're a heck of a lot more than what we have. But I mean, that stuff's been in the ground for a long, long time, and to upgrade all that and have it work perfect, it's going to be a far cry, and it's going to be very expensive. But I agree with 2%, and any extra monies be allocated towards the water situation right away.
All right. Councillor Hondas?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd keep it at 2%.
All right. Okay. So I agree. We will certainly, myself and Mr. Pettigrew, we've got a lot of meetings coming up this winter. We'll be working hard to try to figure something out with this reform. All right. So we'll move forward with the 2%. Thank you, Mr. Abernathy.
So just a clarification, when money falls from the sky, you can trust that it will go for utility, because we will have no choice but to put it there, because we can't take money that falls from the sky for general fund purposes. We cannot transfer it to the utility fund. So although the municipal reform, that will address fiscal assessments and all of that, that is all general fund stuff. It will not give anything more to the utility side. So you can be sure that if we get money falling from the sky, legally, we will not have any choice but to give it to the only department in that fund.
So, which is good.
Yes. Well, good and not good, because we don't have much money falling from the sky.
Exactly.
For that.
Exactly.
That's very limited.
Okay. All right.
So last but not least, it's simply a review for final review before we prepare the resolutions. This is the proposed capital fund budget on the general side. So the total cash for 2.4 million, remember that we had 1.4 million initially, that wasn't our target, but we allocated the full 1.5 million surplus from 2023 to it. Then on the long-term borrowing, we have 665. So we had the initial borrowing that was there, plus we added 140 as indicated when we discussed earlier, for a total capital budget of $3,095,000.
All right.
Okay.
No questions. We're good.
All right. Then the final one is the list of projects for the utility side. So the total long-term borrowing is for 750. For these projects over here, we have one that is coming from the CCBS fund, previously called gas tax, for $985,000. That adds to the long-term, to the other projects for that one.
All right. We have a question from Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question, Sonia. For as long as I've been here, which has been a while now, our capital budget for the utility has always been $750,000. Is there a reason for that?
Yes, a big one. So right now, our debt ratio in our percentages, out of that $8 million budget, we're paying 2.5 something. And so we have 30-something% that goes just for old debts. Because we have when we built the treatment plants, we have old debts that are almost done finishing, but we still have 1 year left. Once those end, then we can start doing a little bit what we've been doing on the general side, because once those debts end, then we can change that money that we pay in debt payment to pay for more cash. We just need for those ones to finish. They're almost done, but once that starts, that 750 will start increasing with cash, and then some will lay off the books, and then we'll be able to decrease the borrowing, increase cash, and start tilting that way, and then we should see an increase there. But we're just waiting for those old loans to finish to be able to start that, maybe 1 year or 2 years.
Okay.
So
because that's been a big holdback from doing any like infrastructure upgrades and stuff like that because of what we were allowed to borrow.
Yes, because right now when we look at your invoice that's 800 and something, well, 30-something% of that goes for just old debts for old infrastructures.
Okay.
That's quite a bit. So if we could tilt it for repairing our system, that is where I would like to go.
Okay, great, thank you.
So we are heading in the right direction. It's just a couple of years left.
Cross your fingers if my math is right. We have a plan that's in your packages that lay out where our debt goes. And if that materializes, we should get there.
Okay. Well, at least there's hope. All right.
That's it.
Okay. Any other questions? We're good? All right. I suppose it would help if I took the agenda. J'avais serré mon agenda, moi, là. Bon. Thank you. Merci, Madame Gauvin. We knew you'd come back with something. You and the team always do. Bon, résolution provisoire P2024-08, politique sur la disposition et l'acquisition de terrains municipaux et politique 1999-02, disposition des biens appartenant à la ville. Ms. Parker.
Whereas the city has developed policy P2024-08, disposition and acquisition of municipal land policy, to better govern the acquisition and disposition of municipal lands. And whereas policy P2024-08 will partially replace policy 1999-02, disposition of city-owned assets in matters related to the disposition of municipal lands, and whereas policy 1999-02 remains applicable for the other city-owned assets not covered under policy P2024-08 and will be updated to reflect this distinction, be it resolved that 1. Policy P2024-08, disposition and acquisition of municipal land policy is hereby approved and adopted, and 2. Policy 1999-02, disposition of city-owned assets, shall remain in effect for all matters not superseded by policy P2024-08 and shall be updated to align with this change.
All right, I'll need someone to move. Councillor Branch, seconded by Councillor Legacy. Before we go to the question, we'll go to Monsieur Laplante, just for a quick update.
Merci, Madame la mairesse. Donc, juste un rappel qu'en mars dernier, il a été annoncé que la ville de Bathurst recevrait jusqu'à 3 millions de dollars du fonds pour accélérer la construction de logements. Afin de recevoir ces fonds, la ville s'est engagée à mettre en œuvre un plan d'action qui comprend 7 initiatives. Une des initiatives de ce plan, c'est une politique pour la disposition et l'acquisition de terrains. Donc, c'est une nouvelle politique qui va favoriser un processus transparent, équitable pour la disposition et l'acquisition des terrains municipaux. Elle répond également à l'objectif de promotion du développement du logement dans la ville. Donc, on peut s'attendre à ce que ça donne des lignes directrices au Conseil municipal et à l'administration pour la disposition et l'acquisition des terrains municipaux. On a des protocoles précis là, pour la disposition de terrains excédentaires selon les désignations respectives qui sont dans la politique. So the new policy will outline a clear process for staff members to deal with requests from the public. It's expected that the new policy for disposition and acquisition of municipal land will clarify the process and reduce resources devoted to individual requests. There are specific protocols for the disposition of surplus lands as per the respective surplus designations. Donc, le Conseil va pouvoir déclarer évidemment que les terrains qui appartiennent à la ville, que des terrains qui appartiennent à la ville sont des terrains excédentaires. Ça peut être suite à un examen interne de l'administration qui est demandé par le Conseil ou une demande d'une partie qui est intéressée. So we'll have specific designations for economic development, extraordinary pieces of land. So we're talking when there's special legal conditions attached to the property, remnants of land, land for intergovernmental transfer, and low density building lots. So there's a specific process outlined in the policy for each of these categories of land. And as with the previous policy that we had in place, the decision to dispose of a property always belong to council. What this new policy does is once council makes a decision that it wants to dispose of a property, it gives us a clear process on how we proceed with the next step, depending on the categories.
All right, so we have a question from Councillor Burnett.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Seems to get away from some red tape that we faced before with developers, and I like that idea. Are we holding up any development now by waiting for this to go through?
Vous avez encore le micro, Monsieur Laplante. I can go to Councillor Legacy. Not Councillor Legacy. Mr. Legacy. We have two legacies here.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No, at present, we're not holding up any development, but this will help accelerate the next steps in a particular case.
Because we do have some nice properties, and I hope that we can get it out there for development. The other part of it, though, is when is the master plan for recreation going to be shared with us so that we can't sell certain lands right now until that is brought before us?
All right, so I'll be going to Mr. Wilbur.
Thank you, Your Worship. To answer your question.
Hold on. Your mic is still...
Thank you, Your Worship. To answer your question, Councillor Bernay, that's due to be presented on December the 9th. December the 9th? Correct. Yes, it is. So the person who made that
plan together will be here?
Yes, Sierra Planning and Management will be here in person to present the findings from that report, and they will be discussing at length based on our request, specifically the piece on disposition of parkland.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So we're good? No other questions? All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? Motion carried. Well, we go to the adjournment of the meeting. Ms. Parker.
That the special public meeting be adjourned at 7:17 p.m.
All right, I'll need someone to move. Councillor Branch, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Oppose? Motion carried. Merci d'être avec nous ce soir. Bonne soirée à tous.